Hey, Sam here. Welcome to my channel. Today I am going to be sharing with you how I color grade my footage without using LUT or any kind of preset. So without further ado, let's get started. So here we are in Adobe Premiere Pro. Once you happen on this place, first navigation is going to be totally awkward, at least for most people, But one thing I can assure you is that you're going to get used to it as you keep using it more frequently. So now to get to here, you go to Window, you go to Workspaces, and then come to Color right here. Once you click on that, this particular segment will open. Okay, so once you come to color, you come to Lumetri scopes. The very first time I came to this particular segment of the software, it was very confusing, man. I didn't know exactly where to go, how to navigate and all that. But at least that's the story of most people who use Premiere Pro. You're new in the place and it's a new house, so navigation is going to be pretty tight and difficult, right? So, but when you stay in that house for 3 weeks, it becomes a lot easier to navigate because you are now getting familiar with the new environment, right? That's pretty much the same thing with Premiere Pro. Let me not flog that. As we progress in the course of how I use this particular software to color grade my footage, I'm going to take some time to actually now explain to you how it works. Here you have all the tools that we need to accurately gauge our colors and make sure that nothing is overexposed, oversaturated, or underexposed or undersaturated, and so on and so forth. So on this side, you have the sliders right here. So this is where bulk of the work is going to happen. Now, the first tool I would need would be a tool called RGB Parade. Now, RGB Parade is a tool that will help me set the white balance, but I need to also let you understand that it is very important that you get your white balance right in camera before even post-production, because sometimes it can be tricky doing the white balance in post-production, So at the end of the day, before this video runs over, I will save my best for last, and I'm going to show you how you can do your white balance accurately in camera before post-production, so that to just be like a walk in the park, So let's continue right here. Usually this is supposed to help with the white balance, and the way I use this particular RGB Parade is I kind of like look for a white thing in the image and then isolate it, and then use this eyedropper tool to click on it, and I'm going to demonstrate it in a bit. So I come to effect control right here. You will see this icon here like a pen above the opacity. I click on it and then I look for a gray segment and isolate the color there, So this is what we'll do. Click on it and then come to another portion, click on it. What you want to do is you just circle around the white or gray area and make sure, let me get rid of this. We'll come back to this. Let's delete that. So we'll come back to this adjustment layer shortly. So let's deal with this particular thing right here. Let me put the adjustment here. So yeah, for me to be able to execute this correctly, I need to do the mask on the clip itself. So I come to this tool and I pick it up. Always make sure your footage is selected, and then click on the pen tool right on top of opacity right there, and then you'll see this mask one will come on. So what it's going to do is that it's going to help me isolate the white area or the gray area in this clip so that I can set the white balance correctly. Okay, so once that happens, let's click here and I will zoom into 100% level so that it will sit properly. So here we have our white. Sorry, I'll come up here and pick the eyedropper tool. But before then, let's open the scopes back up. So usually if everything works correctly, as you can see, there's the black, there's the green, there's the blue, and all these colors are represented in the image or in the clip that we're working with. Usually once this thing is isolated properly, and you're going to see a tiny bit of all this color represented here. So what happens is that I simply just pick the eyedropper tool and click on this white place right here, and that will align all these colors and put them in a straight line. So that means the colors in this video are in perfect alignment. So it's going to see everything that is white correctly as white. Now, before we move further, you need to understand that when you don't set your white balance, what happens is that the camera sees white based on what light that is available. Whatever light that is available in that situation, the camera is going to try to do guesswork to know what to call white, right? So basically what white balance does is that you instruct the camera to say, no, this is what white should be and that is what white should be, to get your white balance accurately in camera, so that whenever you go to post-production, it will just be very easy for you to color grade your footage. Now, that is the best way I understand white balance. So basically, once I'm here, I just simply drag. Now we have our adjustment layer. Now, the way I got the adjustment layer is I come here, just right click on any portion here, and then come to a new item and then click on adjustment layer. So this box will open and we'll just click OK, and then that brings up this box, and we just drag it over our footage and stretch it out all the way. Let's go back to fit the screen, and to just to get rid of the mask, we come back to effect control, click our footage so that our effect control will open. Just hit delete and that gets rid of our mask. So now back on the video, the next thing I want to do right now is go to, this is the basic tab right here. Now the basic tab is what I use for my color grading, and once I'm through with that first segment, what I do next is I just increase, depending on the clip. This clip looks a little bit washed out, you know, I need to apply a little bit of saturation to it so that I gain some of that color back. Let's say up to, let me not do it too much, 110 would be good enough for me for now. This is pretty much what I do with the basic color tab. So after that, I'll shut the basic color tab here. The next tab I want to go to is curves. Now it's time to go back to Lumetri scope, and let's shut down Parade RGB. Now what we need to work with is this one is called Waveform Luma. So that's what we're going to work with. And now how this Waveform Luma works, or how I use it at least, is I use it to correct my exposure. As you can see, this particular video right here is a little bit too exposed. Now you're going to be working with a different kind of footage. Maybe your footage is properly exposed or underexposed. Now, what I apply here is just going to give you an idea of how it works. I'm not saying do exactly how I'm doing this, because the way I'm going to color grade this particular footage is different from the way you probably need to color grade your footage, because we are not dealing with the same situation here, right? But I'm just going to give you an idea of what I do when I color grade my footage. So the situation with your clip might just be totally different from mine. I hope you understand that. So now here we are with this tool, the Waveform Luma. Up here is 100, down here is 0, right? Now anything up here represent the highlights, you know, and anything down here represent the shadows, you know, any dark side of this particular image. Is the same thing across whatever image that you have. If anything crosses this line or hits the 100 level, then you're probably going to be clipping. As you can already tell, if you look at the top here, this image is overly exposed. The highlights are clipping up here. Then if you can see the 0 area here, which represents the shadows, it's up there. The intention for me right now is to make sure everything looks good. I bring down the highlights and then drop the shadow a little bit so that it looks warmer. It looks more like an image that is pleasing to the eye. There's no hard and fast rule about color grading, you know, but you just need to do something that appeals to the eye per time. So I begin to adjust this particular curve here. So I'll click on here to bring down the shadow here so that the image looks better. So as I pull, you begin to see the form moving. So it's already hitting the bottom there with this particular part. It's okay, I really don't mind, but I need to make sure that most of it don't hit that bottom because of the kind of image I'm working with. I would pretty much keep that right there for now. Then on the highlight, I need to also drop that too because the highlight is clipping already. So I pretty much keep it below 90. Once I achieve that, I am pretty much okay. Now what I do with my color grading, I try as much as possible to not crush my shadows so much. I like to see a lot of details in my shadows. The reason for that is because it helps me mimic high-end cameras like the Reds, you know what I mean? So I will pretty much leave that at that. Now, as you can see, our image is now beginning to look a little bit better, right? If we test this thing right here, you can see the difference already made just by that thing we did right now. It looks better. So after that, I pretty much shut this for now. So once I do that, this is now the point where I begin to separate my colors, right? So while still here in curves, right, you can see the hue saturation curve. That's the one I am concerned with. So once I am there, click on this eyedropper tool and click on the skin. The reason why I click on the skin is because I don't want anything I do here to affect the skin. I want to be able to isolate the skin. But here is what I am aiming at, the grains. I like to crush my grains a little bit so that I get that darkish tint to it. So I'll click on here again, and then click on here. Any color that I don't want to affect, I find a way to isolate. This tool will help me isolate. If I crush this, you can see that the blues here are being crushed, but I don't want to crush the blue. I want the blue to remain solid and beautiful. I will even make the blue brighter in a bit. But here is what I want to crush right here, the green. So I pull that green down. As you can see, the green right here is being affected. And then another thing is I push down the yellow too. So that is going to desaturate that particular green. Any color that I don't want to affect, I simply just push it back up. So that's pretty much what I want to achieve here. Now, in my opinion, I have this sweet looking green right there. So I make sure I don't do it too much, really. So the next thing I want to do is to isolate the skin or the background, whichever works for you. You know, so I'm going to come down here. Let me shut this part. I'm going to shut that part. But before we do, I want this image to pop a little bit. And then to do that, I'll come to this portion right here where you have the FX. And then I will click on Add Lumetri Color Effect. Now make sure the new one is selected or is highlighted. This is the one we just worked with, as you can see. But this is the one we just opened, and then we'll begin to effect this whole thing. Now, what I would love to do next is to isolate this. To do that, I shut this and go to HSL secondary, and then I will click on this tool. To do that accurately, I will simply take the eyedropper tool and just hover over his face right here. Once that is done, I come here, I click on color gray. So that is going to give me or show me exactly what I have highlighted. Then I can fine-tune the highlight right here. It takes a bit of time to isolate these colors, but it's worth it. So I might just fast forward this process because it takes time. So as you can see, I have isolated the color on his face. So the next thing I want to do when I do this is I simply just invert the selection because I don't want to do anything on his face. But the colors I want to affect is the background. So I want to invert that by clicking on this box right here. So that will invert the selection. So it means that Any color that you can see right here are the colors that I'm going to pretty much affect as I do this. Now I'm going to remove the grayscale. And then the next thing I do is I increase the denoise to 40.1. You do what's best for you. Then I do 13 point for blur. Now what that would do is to even out the gradation or the color that I apply so that it's not clunky. So I come down to this particular circle right here. I just simply pull this down a little bit, maybe a bit to the side. As you can see, it's beginning to apply some tint to it and is starting to separate it from the face. And then I come to this here and I pull down, it's going to look a little bit darker. So pretty much that's what I do here. Once I'm able to isolate, I will adjust that right here, and that's pretty much what I do here. Now I come back to the curves right here, to the curves. Right here, I am going to affect the image a little bit. So what I do is I put a dot here and then put a dot here. I just pull down a little bit. As I'm pulling, I'm also putting my eye on the waveform luma here so that I don't crush the shadow so much. So as you can see, we'll come up here and drag this to the top. So that will increase our highlight a little bit. The clip is now looking a little bit more contrasty, as you can see. You see the difference? It's now time to actually look at the skin tone and be sure that our skin tone is accurate. The way I do that is I isolate the skin tone using the Vectorscope YUV. I come back to the Vectorscope right here, but before we do that, I will isolate by masking the skin out. I'll mask out a little portion here. So let's go back to Lumetri Scope. Like I explained earlier on, I can tell that the skin is a little bit too reddish, which is probably not too natural for a lot of people. If you look at this line here, it's above the middle line. So it means that there's too much red in that skin tone. So I need to align it to this line. It's not going to fall down here because then it becomes too green. Let me demonstrate that. What I would need to do to execute that is to click on the Eyedropper Tool here and click on the skin, right? So as you can see, the skin has been represented. Our skin tone as humans, it doesn't matter what ethnicity you belong to, what race you are. At the end of the day, if you click on your skin tone, machines have a way of telling us, hey, you have blood flowing in your vein, right? So that's why anytime you pick the Eyedropper Tool and click on your skin, it falls within the red. I guess that means we have life, right? This is what we're going to do. We're going to actually pull down the red a little bit until that line falls into the middle section. As you can see, as I'm pulling on the red, it's moving. Once it falls in the middle section, that means we have achieved our correct skin tone. So I'll just simply go back to here and remove and delete that. As you can already see, we seem to have a perfect skin tone right here. That works for me. Now I can bring in this adjustment layer and go to Vignette. Vignette is just helping me put some shadows on the edges so that the focus is on the subject right here. So the way we achieve that is we come to this amount section here and pull down the slider to the left hand side so that you begin to see that the edges of these images are darkened a little bit, and then we increase the feather by maybe 56.2%. So basically this is what I do to color grade my footage. If you click on the FX button here, you realize that we have done quite some work on this footage. So this is what I stopped by here to share with you. So, but before I go, like I promised earlier on, the bonus that I have for you, the last thing I like to do here is I come here and add another level of Lumetri color. So I come to the thing here. So I like to give it this matte looking effect. To achieve that, I click on this place and I gradually pull up to give it that vintage look. Be careful with this. If you pull up too high, it starts to look very weird. You don't want that. I add just a little bit, That's how I add. So that it gives it that matte look, right? So if you look at it, you see the difference right there. You see? So, and then you can come up here and then I give it a little bit of contrast. Just a little bit of contrast. And then I go to creative and I increase the vibrance, just a little bit of vibrance. I don't do saturation anymore. Just a little bit of vibrance. So that's pretty much it, you know. So I'm done with this. As you can see, color grading done. The last thing I'd like to give to you as bonus is your white balance should be done before you start to do video. What I do is I make sure when I'm recording, I capture that in my video, and that's the thing that I will use in post-production. Sometimes I also apply the custom white balance in the camera. I'm going to attempt to do that in another video. I will hate to make this video run for too long. So when I shoot another video, I will do a video specifically for how to tweak your white balance and tweak it correctly. At least I'm going to show you how I do it. There are tons of ways to do it. Hey, I hope you guys enjoyed this video so far. Don't forget, the best time to create is now. Until another video, this is Sam and I am signing out. Peace.
With me, ooh, ooh, come on and go with me, ooh.